This was right after sectional finals against Pike in 2006, and Stu played his balls off, and he was just spent, right? And this is, exactly the kind of work ethic that I try to recreate when I'm on the track, I'm in the weight room, I'm trying to push through a game, right? And I frequently think about, how Stu would push himself, right? How guys like, if I've had the privilege to play with John Thayer, right? He's another guy who just will work endlessly, right? That's the kind of work ethic that the younger you are when you figure that out, the better you're going to be. That's kind of the next, core principle for me, how you become a better ultimate player. The next thing is to get out and throw, right? It doesn't matter how in shape you are, how big of an athlete you are. If you can't throw, you cannot play this game. When you throw some more, right? Just over and over and over and over again, right? The reason I've put these 3 pictures up here, right, is, you notice that when I throw pulls, right, these are all shots of me throwing pulls, the form is nearly identical every time, right? Even in the picture on the left, when I slipped, lost my balance, right, the form is still basically the same, right? And that's not a coincidence. That's hundreds and hundreds of pulls by myself, out there throwing stacks, right? Nobody's there to sort of, slap you on the back, tell you, great job, thanks for working, right? It's about getting out there and just putting the reps in. It's about putting the hours in. And what it's going to do is it's going to solidify your form. You're going to find that everything you do comes automatically. All of your form is going to happen the same way every single time, whether there's a guy in your hip or not, or whatever, right? So you need to get out there and throw. That's the biggest thing possible. Once you put work in, right, take pride in success. Right, this is, I love this picture because to me, it's important for our program. Right, this is the first tournament we won since I've been here. Right, that was a big deal. It's Nutbuster. Now, 2 years, into it, we'd say, whatever, it's Nutbuster. Who gives a shit? Right, we always win that tournament, right, because we've won it twice in a row. 3 years ago, we lost it. Right, 4 years ago, we wouldn't have been competitive enough to win it. So This is huge to me, right? And it's important to take stock of where you're at. When you win tournaments, when you play tight games and you come out on top, take pride in that. Enjoy those successes, right? But also realize that there's always more to do, right? So, there's a couple, these 2 pictures in particular in the past couple of years have been something that's been pretty motivating for me. So the picture on the right is, just dicking around playing boot, Zilla's kind of the hell out of me. Right, and that bugs me. That bothers me, right? Because that's a play that I feel I should make, and I didn't make it, right? And somebody having to snap a picture of me not making it, right? So it's there, and it bugs me. And you should let that kind of stuff bug you. You should let it push you harder when you're doing a plyos workout, when you're on the track, whatever. And the picture on the left is playing against Southpaw this past fall at club sectionals. That's a tough catch to make, but the bottom line is it bounced off my hand, right? That's a disc I need to catch. And that still bugs me to this day, and we're 8 months after the fact, right? That one play is something that I remember happening. I see this picture all the time, right? And I let it motivate me, right? When I'm sucking wind in a workout, it's stuff like this that tries, to keep pushing me, right? That's something that's really big. I also really want to encourage you guys to play in as many leagues as you can. So we've talked a lot about getting you guys into summer leagues, we have pushed you to play in winter league. I think probably every year that you guys have been here, we've had some winter league stuff going on. And you can kind of go into leagues with 1 of 2 perspectives. You can say whatever, it's summer league, it's time to dick around, it's time to do whatever, or you can use it to get better. Right? For me, I've always viewed summer league as it's a laboratory. It's where you experiment with things. It's where you work on things. Right? The picture on the left is me skying the shit out of some tiny dude. Right? It's great. This is not an accomplishment. It's like jumping over Dutcher. It's fine. Right? But the bottom line is, rather than making a little hop, right? Maybe even catching it just standing on the ground, right? Make sure you go up and make the play. right? I mean, believe it or not, this is like me like seriously getting up, right, in this picture. Picture on the right, this is me covering Darren Schultz, who's one of the fastest, best deep receivers we've got in the city. Exactly the kind of guy that I would never cover in a club game, ever, because it's like an automatic goal, right? But to me, that's exactly the matchup you try to get in summer league. I know I'm not good at covering cutters, so I'm going to try to cover cutters in summer league. I'm going to try to push that skill. But I could cover handlers. I could get a bunch of point blocks, D's around the mark, or whatever. But that doesn't make me better as a player, right? Use leagues as something to improve yourself. The next thing that I think is pretty critical is just have a frisbee around. Just be near discs all the time, right? You'd be surprised how much better you get at like fine motor skills, hand position, all that shit, just by dicking around with frisbees, right? I mean, to me, this is, the only reason this picture's here is because I'm doing just something stupid, right? I mean, I'm trying to like, I don't even know, pop a disc up off my foot, mack it a little bit, just like dick around, get used to what a disc feels like, how it moves, how it spins, how you catch it, right? How you drop it when it, goes wrong, what happens, why can't you catch that disc when you're playing flutter or whatever? Just do whatever, right? This is a picture from like 2002 or 1 of my buddy Chris. We're just throwing way-out balls over a pool, right? It's the same thing. It's a good time. Everybody's just chilling out, right? But, what you're not thinking about is that, Chris is working on developing great hands here. He's working on developing extension on layouts. He's working on how do you land properly, right? I mean, water's obviously more forgiving than the field, but, you don't want to go face first, right? That kind of stuff. So, that's like, to me, those are kind of the general, like, components of, how I think you can get better as a player. And, I encourage you to just try to keep that in mind. All right, so the next thing I want to talk about is just really briefly about time management. This is just kind of really high-level ideas about how to try to balance all these things that are in your life, right? I mean, I realize that Ultimate is not the only thing you guys do, even though as a coach, sometimes probably it seems like I think all you do is play Ultimate, right? But we all have lots of other things. And something that I've always thought is really productive is list your priorities out. Like, what do we write them down somewhere? And for me, this is, the set of my priorities, right? My family and Gail, my girlfriend, comes first. School comes after that. Ultimate comes after that. And, friends and external social life comes after that, right? And if you literally have this written down, when the shit hits the fan, you need to figure out, how do I prioritize stuff? I've got 3-4 events that are all going on at the same time. What do I go to? Who do I have to disappoint? What am I going to turn down? It becomes really simple, right? So, I mean, for example, I might say, is it okay with Gail if I go to this tournament, right? It's worth noting that for Gail, the answer is almost always yes. And if the answer is no, there's a damn good reason why, right? And it's pretty easy for me when I look at my priority list. Gail says no, like, fuck it, Ultimate's not happening this weekend, right? That's just the way it is, right? And you'll find that if you're clear with your teammates, you're clear with your peers, they're going to be okay with it, right? Another example of this is, maybe you've got somebody, wants you to go to the frat party to do whatever, you're going to say, sorry, buddy, I can't go to your party, I've got a tournament this weekend, right? It's just cut and dry, right? And the reason that's all right is you can say, look, if you want, I'll write my priorities out for you. This is how it is, right? It's also worth noting that it's fine to change, right? If for some reason something happens in your life, or you're burned out, Ultimate's just not as much fun as it was, that's fine. It's cool to change. People do it all the time, right? And in this case, if we just flip Ultimate down to the bottom of the list, right, this question is going to stay the same, right? Because, that priority list is the same, but, this one is going to change, right? Now you're going to say, sorry guys, I can't go because I got to do this frat party thing, right? That's my priority structure, and that's fine, right? I mean, we've had a number of guys over the years that, have been committed 1 year or 1 semester, and, some shit happens, that, they have other activities that take precedence or priority, and I've never been upset with guys who come to me or other people on the team and say, look, I'm just not that into Ultimate anymore. The guys who say, I'm 1,000% in, and then do other shit, that's where you get problems. That's where your teammates get pissed off. That's where everybody gets more riled up. So just try to keep this in mind, right? And I really would encourage every one of you to just write down a list of 4 or 5 things, because it's going to help you a lot, I think, or at least in my experience, it's helped me a lot. Yeah, so just also really briefly just about time management in particular. So just put this picture up here. This is my undergraduate desk, I think sophomore year. So the only point here is time management is something I think I'm pretty good at now, but I was awful at it when I started school. I mean, so if you look at this desk, there's a Dan Brown novel on it. There's a fucking calculator. I'm writing a psychology paper. Right, there's a fucking Slinky for some reason. Right, I don't know why there's a fork. It's like a disorganized, awful mess. And believe me, in terms of all of those things I was trying to do simultaneously, right, the desk is a symptom of what was going on in my life. Right, I had too much shit going on. Everything collided with everything else. Right, and the only point here is that it's a skill. Right, somehow in the last 8 years, 9 years, it's a skill that I've worked on, it's a skill that I've gotten much better at, and I feel like, right now my desk doesn't look like this anymore. It's kind of like, here's the thing I'm doing, next time I do this thing, next time I do that thing, right? So, how to get from here to there. Again, just go through the simple exercise of writing stuff down. Write out your schedule hour by hour, literally. Whether that's a sample day or a sample week or whatever, if you're feeling like you're pressed for time, just write out chunks of time. Write out, when do I have class? When is the lecture scheduled? When do I have to do other things? When do I have to do stuff for ultimate? When am I supposed to be on the track? When am I supposed to lift? When do I have practice? Right? Write down when typically every week you're going to do that problem set or whatever. I know that, whatever, my real analysis class has a problem set, and I do that on Monday afternoon, right? And granted, sometimes it runs a little past Monday afternoon, but write that shit down, block off time to do it, right? And what that's going to do is it's going to help you organize what's going on in your life, so that way you can, again, like we said with listing out your priorities, when the shit hits the fan, you can look at this and you say, okay, well, here's the block that I'm supposed to do this thing. You don't even think about it, you just do what you're supposed to do and time allotted for it, right? And if you need to adjust later on, that's fine, but use it as a starting point. That honestly would solve the majority of the problems that people have come to me over the last 4 or 5 years talking about time management. I always ask them, have you literally written it down, what you do on a daily basis? And the answer is almost always no. And I promise you it'll help. And also, realize that you do have a social life, presumably, right? Put in time to dick around. Put in time to, have friends. Go out to dinner with, whatever, right? Get a girlfriend or whatever. Put blocks in for that. But realize also those are just additional activities that fit into time zones, right? And that's really what the core of time management is for me. And the other thing to keep in mind, this is something that Quinn said at our meeting the other day that I just absolutely love, because it resonated with me perfectly. Quinn said something along the lines, right? This is paraphrasing, but he said something like, I use work as a break from ultimate, and ultimate is a break from work. Once I do some work, I'm ready to get on the field, and once I finish practice, I'm ready to go to work, right? Meaning that if you have sort of well-defined time slots, different activities, things that you're going to do, you can use these to sort of balance each other. You can use one thing to recharge yourself to do the next, right? And that's going to make you more productive, right? And Kuhn claims he just got better at everything once he started doing this, right? But, he's not that far off, right? You're going to be more productive if you think about allocating time for different things, and you think about